So, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone can clearly see the screen. So yeah, like announced, it's just like a presentation about the Luxembourg aerodrome procedures. There's like nothing really new that is in here that's not covered in the documentation. It's more like a why the things are the way they are. So the focus lies more on understanding why it is the way it is, instead of like just giving the way that it is as is. All right. So I'll just start off. First, to begin, can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, that's great. So let's of course start just with a little disclaimer. Of course, since Luca is recording this presentation, it might be outdated at the time you are watching this as a video. Of course, the presentation is not a substitute for proper studying of procedures and/or training from the Belux VAC training department. The presentation must not be used for real-life aviation, obviously, and Belux VAC can never be held responsible for the misuse of information. Also, like some concepts that I'm going to discuss in this lecture, a little bit advanced. Make sure you fully understand everything and you feel comfortable about them before you're actually using them online. Ask for further information if needed. All right, so let's just quickly cover the contents. So we'll start off with just like the runway. Like we have one runway. What are the characteristics of it and how do we use it in day-to-day usage? We'll cover the aprons, ground circulation, the airspace structure. We'll use the airspace structure that we have and we'll build a general strategy of how we're going to use it from that, and then we'll develop that into the procedures, and then in the end we'll have a little bit of information on coordination and how we're going to do that. Okay, so let's start off with the runway. So over here we have like the nice ground radar screen of Luxembourg that we all know and love. And like we have only one main runway, runway 06, runway 24. For those interested, Echo and India, it used to be a runway in a long time ago. But of course that has now been closed and now we have a nice apron Cargolux maintenance hangar over here. The runway is 4 kilometers and 2 meters, so it's actually very long. Speaking in aviation terms, like I think a regular runway is about 3.5 kilometers, so actually pretty long runway, so which is quite good, obviously. ILS runway 06 is only category 1, so when you're using runway 06, and you see that the visibility is getting lower and lower, might be a good idea to switch over to runway 24 in time. Because during the low visibility procedures, you will be using runway 24 normally. All right, then let's just continue to the aprons. So like I've selected them over here, like the main overview of what they are. So like the passenger apron is marked in red, which is also referred to as Papa 1. Then the business jet general aviation terminal, we've enabled that in orange. And then you have state aircraft and Luxair. I actually now realize it's not on, I don't have color for it. It's like this little spick over there. No, everyone, can you see my mouse?
Yep.
Yeah, all right, that's great. So yeah, that's for state aircraft, and Luxair also has a little maintenance hangar over there. Then the next thing is the general aviation parking, which is marked in yellow. Now, many people will probably wonder, like, what's the difference between a general aviation parking and a general aviation terminal? Well, the main thing that we use to distinguish the two of them is like this: the aircraft has Luxembourg as a home base. If Luxembourg is the home base of your aircraft, then it means that you'll go to general aviation parking, which is over here. And when you're just like flying in from Grimbergen as your home base or whatever, you'll go to the general aviation terminal and park there. Like normally, of course, there are exceptions, but like that's the general rule. And of course, we have the beautiful Cargolux maintenance hangar over here. It's very nice. It's quite big as well. You also have like a few stands in front of it for aircraft that is just like left maintenance or just gonna go to maintenance. And I think they're already included in gate designer as well. And then, of course, you have like the cargo aprons over here. Keep in mind, like this apron to the west is quite new, so people using old scenery might not have it. Okay, now we'll start off with like discussing standard location at the passenger apron, because that can be quite complicated, and there are a lot of things that you have to keep in mind. So the first thing we're gonna do is like we're gonna divide the apron into different wingspans. So like every stand has a maximum wingspan. We're just gonna divide it by wingspan first, then we're gonna divide by some other characteristics, and then in the end we'll combine everything, and then you'll see where the stand allocation comes from. Okay, so the first category we're gonna talk about is like a large wingspan. We're talking more than 40 meters over here, and it's actually quite simple. You only have Victor 4.3 and Alpha 2. There used to be the idea that Victor 4.1 was also part of it, but actually that's not true. There's like a lantern over here, so you basically only have two stands for traffic with such a wide wingspan that are passengers. Victor 4.3, it can be split into Victor 4.3 Alpha and Victor 4.3 Bravo. That should be typo over here. And then you have like two extra stands over here, but like those are for small wingspans. Then you have the medium wingspan, like the most used stands in general. You have like the Alpha stands, like all these. Bravo 6 and Bravo 8, they're also medium wingspan, but like normally you don't really use them that much for medium wingspan aircraft. And then the Victor stands, the west of Lima 2, they are also for a medium wingspan. Then you also have like traffic with a small wingspan, so think of your CRJs, your Dash 8s, and like the other smaller aircraft. And like all the remaining stands are for those. So most notably, those are the Bravo stands, like the majority of it, and like these little three, they're also for small wingspan, as is Victor 4.1 and like the Victor 4.3 Alpha and Victor 4.3 Bravos. Okay, by customs, of course, we all know about the Schengen Convention. Like a fun fact, Schengen is a city in Luxembourg, the country. So that's like your fun fact for the night. And basically, at the airport, we have like the main terminal, and in the terminal, there is a line dividing the Schengen and the non-Schengen area. So what it really means is like for non-Schengen, you use Alpha 2 and Alpha 4 because that's on this side of the apron. And then for Schengen stands, you can just use the Bravo stands and like these three Alpha stands as well, because like they are connected with a jetway to the terminal, basically to the Schengen part of the terminal. For all other stands, you can basically use both because like you will have a bus that takes you to the correct site. So this also even includes these two newer stands. It's just like you walk out of the plane and you get on a bus, and the bus will drop you off either at the Schengen part or at the non-Schengen part, depending where you have to go. All right, and then the last part is like by having a jetway or not. So with a jetway, it's like only Alpha 2 to Alpha 10. So like only this is it, and like everything else is without a jetway. The Bravo stands have the advantage that it's like what I like to call a walk-to gate. So it means that like when you're in the terminal, you can go outside of the terminal, walk down all the way to the apron, and just walk straight into the plane. So there's no bus required. And then you have like everything else that's just a bus. So like these include all your typical Victor stands and Alpha 12 and Alpha 14. Those are remote stands where the bus will take you to the correct site of the terminal. So selecting the correct stand for a passenger can be a little bit complicated because of the things we've just discussed, but in general, it boils down to the following thing. First, you eliminate all the occupied stands. Then you eliminate all the stands with an incompatible wingspan. Like, most important, of course, that you eliminate the stands with like a lower wingspan, but like try to give like the best fit for a wingspan. You don't want to occupy a stand that was made for large wingspan with only a medium wingspan, so that if another aircraft arrives in 2 minutes, that you run out of stands. So you want to avoid that. Then eliminate all the stands that are not available for the origin airport. So like that's based on the Schengen non-Schengen stuff. And then if stands with a jetway remain, would the company pay for them? Luxair, yes. Ryanair in general don't like to pay for jetways. So this is basically your step plan. And then, oh yeah, of course, choose the most convenient stand. Walking is easier than taking a bus. Closer is better than far. Okay, I've added this in. The gate assigner at the moment is doing a really great job and like taking all the rules into account, but like some things are just like a little bit, yeah, you have to do it a little bit on the feeling. So of course, gate design is a great tool and you can use it, and it's very, very good, but it doesn't hurt to double check it from time to time. Okay, next, any questions up to this point? No? Okay. So we'll just continue with the Aprons circulation then, which is also quite straightforward, and it just follows the circulation for it just follows the circulation that actually the runway uses. Oh no, yeah. So this is like the apron. I'll get to the taxiways first. I was a little bit too fast there. So in general, you enter the aprons via these taxiways and you exit them via Lima 2. Now it's very important that you respect that Lima 2 flow, because over here there's like a big painting on the taxiway that says no entry. So you can deviate from like these standard taxi routes that are shown in red here and yellow over here. But like always respect like the flow of Lima 2, because it would be a little bit strange for pilots with good scenery that you just like let him taxi into a lane where there literally says no entry. In real life, they use Lima 1 as a direct entry for Alpha 6 only. On VATSIM, it's okay if you just use it for others as well. It's a little bit ATC discretion, but like this is like the way it's done in real life mostly. So I think I've mostly said this. Oh yeah, of course, during westerly config, so runway 24 is active. This one is eastbound only. We'll get to that in when we talk about the taxiway circulation as well. And Lima 2 circulation must always be respected. All right, ground circulation. Well, this is basically it. The picture we all know and love. So you get them out, and then just like in this way, you circle them around. It's actually quite useful and works very, very well. Of course, during easterly config, you have to be way, way, way more careful that you avoid nose-to-nose encounters at the vacating points over here, because like then this taxiway becomes bidirectional. So you have to be very careful about that. I'm very sorry to bring this picture up again, but like it's just such a nice example to be extra careful when you are using your runway 06. And better safe than sorry. So in this case, what really happened is like this plane, this is me, this was another plane. I was just taxiing towards my stand. I was over here, I think. And the other aircraft had been given the instruction to hold short of this taxiway. But like he accidentally crossed it, so actually it was the pilot's error, not the controllers. Like in general, better be safe than sorry. If you think you have opposing traffic, give the hold short instruction. Do not let this one leave the apron, or like very, very closely monitor the situation so that you don't encounter this. Okay. Next thing I'll cover is the airspace structure, and then we're mainly talking about like our own airspace structure and then traffic that is close to us. So we'll start with the airspace of Luxembourg itself. Like we start with the CTR. It goes up to 2,500 feet plus delta, which basically means that you only have to separate IF4 traffic from IF4 traffic, and like VF4 traffic should take care of their own separation, but you are expected to give traffic information. For example, if two VF4 planes crash into each other in the CTR, and you have given traffic information, it means that it's completely the pilot's fault. Same even goes for IF4 VF4 separation. Like in this Class D airspace, if an IF4 plane collides with a VF4 airplane, it's the pilot's mistake, not yours. But of course, you want to give as much traffic information to all pilots involved as possible. And of course, you want to make like sure separation a little bit by like sequencing them. So it's often works well is you just let them enter Mersa Bravo, Remix Sierra, for example, and just let them orbit over there till the way is clear. But like most people of you will already know that. Okay. Then we have the Luxembourg TMAs, which are basically the same thing, a little bit bigger than itself. And they have a variable upper limit, like this is 145, over here it's 165, over here you have a few things that only are 905. In general, they are Class D below, flight level 905, Class Charlie above. So what means like it's the same story in the TMAs below flight level 905. VF4 traffic flies onto another VF4 aircraft. They crash, it's their own fault. VF4 aircraft flies into an IF4 aircraft below flight level 905, it's their own fault, assuming you have given traffic information. Above it, you get into Class Charlie airspace, which means, as we can see over here, this is from Skybury, by the way. IFR is separated from IFR, IFR is separated from VFR. So basically, VFR crashes into VFR, you're good. Well, not good, but you know. VFR crashes into IFR, it's your mistake as a controller. So you have to be a little bit more careful there. And then you have a few ones with class echo, but you'll just ignore those for now because they're not very important. Then we have the Brussels CTA South 3. So with this little part, it's actually not a TMA of Luxembourg. It's part of Brussels, and it's delegated to Luxembourg approach between level 5.5 and level 1.6.5. And this is in its entirety completely class Charlie. Okay. Now we get to like one of the more interesting parts, like the airspace that surrounds it. And like for Brussels, and I've said in the beginning, it's like the worst case scenario. So we're basing ourselves on like every military airspace is active, a lot of other traffic and airspace is active as well. So we really want to like focus on that situation for a moment. So when you look at this, you'll see that you basically have only one way in, one way out into the Luxembourg airspace when you're coming from or going to or going through the Brussels airspace. So it means like you kind of have a corridor over here that channels traffic in and you can channel traffic out. Well, the same also applies to Langen airspace, and I'm probably drawing this completely wrong, and people who are in here from VETSIM Germany will know a lot more of this airspace than me. But like in general, it's the same thing. You have like one way to get it in. Over here, you have like Ramstein airbase, which is blocking the way. Over here, you have like, it's another line, but like also you have a lot of Frankfurt arrivals that are going in like this. So it's also like a small corridor. Rams as well. And I dare to say that Rams is like the most restrictive part of the neighboring sectors, because you have the TMA of Metz-Nancy-Lorraine over here, you have few restricted airspace over here, you have the German border over there. So via Rams, traffic via Rams, it's very, very close. And we'll get back to this later on, where we're discussing the stars and the transitions and the sits. Like Rams will always be like a very, very difficult place where it's very important to maintain good situational awareness and just maintaining your overview so you know what's going on. Okay, let's also quickly have a look at Paris airspace. Basically, Paris airspace is quite good actually. We're limited a little bit over here with this military airspace, also like with this TMA, but and for the main part, it's quite wide and you have a lot of space. So we don't have to care that much about the part of the airspace in Paris. Okay. So I just found this funny. This is basically an abstraction of what we have, like a tall TMA in the middle and then just 4 corridors feeding in and out. And like the way in is also the way out. So that comes with some difficulties. So as I've said before, the airspace itself, it's very tight. So it really means that you have to make some good rules about that. Also like the corridors as well, there's not so much room to provide lateral or long separation. So basically, the traffic going into and out of the TMA, they will be on the same routes. So you'll only basically be able to provide vertical separation, a little bit of longitudinal separation, but that's mainly it. So it's one of the more important difficulties that you encounter when controlling at Luxembourg or flying in and out of it. That's the source. And of course, you have a lot of neighboring fears, in our case, VACCs as well. So we are working with a lot of people who might not be too familiar with the airport because it's not in their airspace, they haven't controlled there. So it's very, very important that you know this. First, you know this, and that you can talk to the other controls. Okay, like I would like to do it this way, or can you do that for me, please? Because yeah, they won't know obviously what is to control there because many of them won't have control there. Need for a good strategy and flexible use of airspace. So like basically what I made is this, like, and it basically sums up the situation. Flying into out of Luxembourg, you always have traffic below, traffic above, multi-airspace to one side, another airport's TMA on the other side. So that's basically the situation of flying in or out of Luxembourg. Okay, let's also quickly have a look at the controllers and the equipment the controllers have. First, you have to start off, your radar is less advanced. which means you'll have to provide 5 nautical miles separation and 6 nautical miles when you're behind a heavy. Like the 3 nautical miles rule, it doesn't exist at Luxembourg. The equipment is not good enough to provide it. On VETSIM, of course, when the situation gets very, very busy, well, it's okay if you reduce to 3 nautical miles, then I can understand it. But like, if it's not too busy and you like really want to do it as real as it gets, you should provide 5 miles separation and 6 nautical miles behind a heavy. 4 nautical miles is tolerated on final approach, just because they're all lined up, and in most cases they'll be able to see each other. So then you're allowed to go like a little bit closer to 4 nautical miles. Also, some mistakes we see from time to time. Luxembourg doesn't have CPDLC in real life. It doesn't have DCL in real life. It doesn't have PDC in real life. So it doesn't exist. Voice only for like communication. And you don't have a ground or a delivery controller. Most of us will know that, but like some pilots will occasionally say, why doesn't Luxembourg ground online? It's too busy. Well, it's just because it doesn't exist yet. We have some intel that says that they're probably gonna get a ground and or a delivery controller soon. But for the moment, I'm giving this talk, it doesn't exist yet. Okay, so I've talked about like the main difficulties now. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is, of course, like how do we handle those difficulties? Like how are we going to design our procedures to make sure that we can work with these difficulties and they don't cause too much problems. So the first difficulty we noted is it has a tight airspace and very small corridors. Therefore, a good rule is to get your departures above your arrivals as soon as possible. Especially via REMS, as I said before, it's a very, very tight corridor, and you really don't have much space over there to get them on another route because of all the other airspace around it. And also because you have, like, when you're looking at REMS, you have the inbound flow from Zurich there as well. You have some outbound flows as well. So you really don't have much space over there to maneuver aircraft around. So the best idea is just get your departures above your arrivals, and then they can climb freely, and then both flows don't interfere with each other. The next thing is, of course, have good knowledge of your airspace and the corridors around it, which is basically what I just discussed. If you know it well, how it looks like and how everything feeds into each other, then you can, of course, make better predictions. Okay, I'm going to use this method, and I'm going to get them in like that, and like those things. It's easier to get those. Use published procedures to reduce workload, and I'm mainly talking about stars and transitions at this point. Of course, the SIDS as well. But I'll pay a little bit special focus to the stars and the transitions, because I notice some people are still a little bit afraid how to use them correctly. So we'll cover that as well. And of course, coordinate. Like at any regional airport, coordination is always key. Always, every small airport, not even small, but like a regional airport, like in real life, Liège is a very good example. They don't do anything else than coordinating over there because they have so many different airports and surroundings. Basically, Luxembourg is the same. Make sure you coordinate enough to provide separation and make it still an efficient and safe flow. A lot of neighboring fears, which I've already discussed. Again, have a good knowledge of your neighboring sectors, so you know who to contact in case like there's a sector split or like many sector splits. Know which sectors are neighboring you. Know what like standard rules are and these things. Now, a good thing is that we have flexible LOAs, so there's a little bit of flexibility built in, so you don't need too much coordination. And like again, coordinate is the main point. Hashtag read the fucking LOA. They are on the website. I suggest you go to, well, like the main ones for Luxembourg, like Frankfurt, Paris, and Reims. Do read them and make sure you know them well when you're controlling at Luxembourg, because you'll be needing them all the time, basically. Okay. Now that we have discussed like the general strategy, we know which limitations we have, we know how we are going to solve them. So we're just going to quickly look at the procedures, which is basically the concrete way of how we are solving them. General. We'll start with overflights because they're the most easiest ones, and you don't have to do much about them, so we can focus on like the more important ones later on. From time to time, you will have some overflights in Luxembourg, mainly to Metz, Nancy, Lorraine, for example. And these are actually executed the following way. The star is given by Brussels control. Then Brussels transfers it to Luxembourg approach. You, as Luxembourg approach, just descend them to flight level 150. Make sure they don't conflict with anything else, but normally that won't be the case. And you transfer it back to Reims ACC. Coordinate with Brussels and Reims, so maybe it's easier to just send them directly to Reims from Brussels, and then you don't have to go over you. So that's a good idea to coordinate when it's not too busy. Okay, you can just send them directly, and then that way you don't lose time dealing with them. Another one is Spangdahlem. I'm probably pronouncing that completely wrong, but anyway, not much traffic goes over there. But if you were to have one, it's basically the idea is descend to reach 50110 by BTEX and make sure you transfer early to Langenradar. Okay, arrivals. So we talked about this already. You want to get your arrivals below your departures, especially when they're coming from Reims, and you want to do that as soon as possible. So to help you with that, you also have like the general procedures, and I'm just gonna quickly cover them now. In arrival procedure, it generally consists of first an RNF star. This RNF star is followed by a transition, and that is followed by a particular approach type, ILS, RNP, VOR. At the moment, we still have NDB, but it's going to retire in somewhat later this year. So if you're watching this video now on YouTube and not following it live, it might be possible that NDB is already retired. Of course, you have other options, and like I'm just gonna say like the main thing, but of course there are like a lot of other options. You have like the Luxembourg specific CDO procedure, which we'll discuss a little bit later. You have, of course, the procedural approach, which I don't really recommend because it's just like dialing a lot of radials in and stuff. Many pilots will probably not do that and just enter something into their FMC and it will work, but it's not recommended to do it. You, of course, have the conventional stars that are left as well. Visual approach is always possible. And of course, like the thing most people use on their day-to-day basis for controlling at Luxembourg is vectors. I'm not going to cover vectors too much today because most people will have received good training to vector traffic in. So today I really want to focus on the RNF stars and the transitions and how you can use them and like not use vectors. Because it's also like another way of doing things and it can be really helpful, especially when it's busy or when you like stuffing Brussels control and there are a lot of other traffic around. Okay, let's quickly cover some typical scenarios using RNF stars and the transitions from different locations. So we'll start with an aircraft that's coming in from Brussels. Okay, so traffic enters Brussels ACC airspace. Brussels issues a star which ends in Diekirch, like they all end in Diekirch normally. You have like a few conventional stars that do not end in Diekirch but in Whiskey Lima uniform, but we're just gonna ignore those for now. So Brussels issues a star clearance and already gives some early descent instructions. Then Brussels will transfer to Luxembourg approach and the traffic will be on the star descending flight level 150. Of course, you can coordinate to do things otherwise, doesn't really matter. But this is like the standard procedure. Luxembourg approach advises the aircraft of the runway that is in use, clears the traffic on an appropriate transition, and gives further descent instructions. Transfer to Luxembourg director when online is done when the traffic is on the transition or another coordinated way. And then traffic is clear for the approach, traffic is transferred to tower, etc. Like most people will know this. Okay. Langen is a little bit different, and sometimes there are some mistakes that are made on this. So I'll quickly cover what is in the LOA and like the way it should be done. So traffic enters Langen ACC. Langen ACC issues a descent instruction. Traffic is transferred to Luxembourg approach clearly ahead of the star entry point and descending flight level 90. Luxembourg approach issues star, transition, runway, clearance, and descent. So it's important, Luxembourg approach gives the star clearance when the traffic is transferred clearly ahead of the star entry point. So we're talking like, I don't know, 3 minutes before Bitbu. I can show some charts maybe, yes. So look, you have these stars coming in or from here. So like when traffic is transferred, like let's say here for Bitbu, it's still clearly ahead. So it means that you as Luxembourg Approach have to issue the star. Like for Olivier, it's like very deep into Langen airspace. So if you're coordinating, you'll probably use coordinate about Olivier. But if Langen Radar were to send you the traffic early and clearly ahead of Olivier, you would also like have to give the star clearance. Same with MAPI as well. Okay, so I'll go back to the presentation. Okay, you give him the star, transition, everything is clear, transfer to the director. Director clears traffic for approach, and then transfer to tower, and so on. Now the alternative we're going to talk about from Langen is that the first steps are just the same, but then you coordinate. Because it might be possible that an early handoff is not possible at all times. So when the early handoff is not possible because other traffic is in the area or whatever the situation is, then you're going to coordinate. Like, okay, what star do you want me to give based on your traffic situation? Okay, that works for me. And you're just going to figure something out. Couldn't do it that way. And then the traffic is transferred to Luxembourg Approach. Clearly, you beam the star entry point descending flight level 900. So, like, this is the main thing. If you're not sure whether or not you have to give a star as Luxembourg Approach, it depends on the star entry point. That's like the flexible part in flexible use. If it's clearly ahead of it, it means you still have to issue the star. If it's clearly past it, it means that the star has already been issued. Like, we've done this way to make it very clear from, okay, he has star, he doesn't have star yet. And then you don't have to coordinate endlessly about it. Okay, then Luxembourg Approach, of course, issues transition, clearance says the runway, just for the descent, transfer to director, traffic is cleared for approach, and then traffic is transferred to Luxembourg Tower. Let's just take a few notes from the LOA. Traffic must follow published star routings and vertical profiles. Now this is very important, and it's important that you always follow this rule. As long as traffic is not in your airspace, the traffic should be on a published star routing and should follow the appropriate vertical profile. And it's your responsibility as Luxembourg Approach to make sure that the traffic does follow that. Nothing is more annoying than sending off an airplane and you have made perfect separation, and then next control just starts to randomly turn them around while they're still quite deep in your airspace. So let's just show it for reference. Bitbu is over here. When you're transferring clearly ahead of Bitbu, traffic will be around here or something. Yeah, that's just basically in the middle of Langen airspace. So you just don't want to start vectoring around in there unless you coordinate it. So you just follow either the Delta arrival, Echo, or the Papa arrival, but like don't get creative without coordinating first. Luxembourg Approach or director can extend the transitions as shown into Langen, and so this basically means you can use these. Now, giving a real reroute to pilots will be a little bit difficult, and not all ones will know how to program them in. But like when you're just controlling out and like, okay, you have traffic over here, you have another one just about at this point, you can just tell to this one, okay, fly, turn right, heading 060 approximately, and then you can just like vector them around this route. It also works. So this is also fine. You can use that to give yourself a little bit more room over there. As long as you stay within like the box, it's okay and it's approved. And when it is in the downwind leg, it should be traffic should be between flight level 60 and flight level 90. When you're turning it onto the base leg or onto final, you can descend them lower to 4,000 feet. A star must be issued by Luxembourg Approach. I'm saying it again over here. It's very, very important that you follow published routings. Okay. Paris and Reims, as to say, it seems like I forgot to like have my points come on one by one, but the idea is also quite straightforward, a little bit the same as Brussels. Traffic answers Paris or Reims. Paris or Reims issues star. Victor, Sierra, and Kilo are the standard ones. Transfer to Luxembourg Approach on the star, descending flight level 90. Luxembourg Approach advises runway in use, clears traffic, and we know the drill from there. So the star that Paris and Reims issues are standardized because it's easy to standardize them from there. The ones from Langen are a little bit more complicated and depend way more on the situation. We'll see an example of that later. So for Paris and Reims, they are standardized. If you want a different star based on your traffic situation or whatever, it's okay. You can just ask, okay, please use delta stars from now on. But like in general, you'll have them on a quite a good star. Yeah. Okay. Paris and Reims notes from the LOA as well. Traffic must also follow published star routings and vertical profiles until they are within your TMA. So that means like they should be following it until they are in the TMA. Lorraine TMA altitude limits are included in the star descriptions. So like we said before, there's a TMA lying over here approximately, and we see that we have like the minimum levels over here. So to give you the pilots a nice step down, you can use the fancy descent via star flight level 90, for example, and they should follow it. Also keep in mind the descent via star or descent via transition, only use it in Luxembourg. It doesn't exist in Belgium. This is defined in the differences from the ICAO standards on the AIP. Okay, holds. Luxembourg basically have two main holdings. You have some smaller ones at Echo Lima Uniform and Whiskey Lima Uniform and stuff. Like the main ones are Diekirch and Excos, and they have their range as well. Also, I'm gonna go back to this now. Yeah, because I forgot to say it here. It's like you see, traffic is descending flight level 90. The reason that traffic from Reims is descending flight level 90 is because it ends in the Excos hold most of the time, which is maximum flight level 90. So we descend them down, and then if you are using a hold, you can just let them enter the hold at the level they are descending to. That's the reason we've done it like that. For Langen, it's also flight level 90, but that's just because it's published on the star that it is the maximum level for a certain leg of it. The leg between Bidbu and Diekirch is maximum flight level 90, so that's why we've also taken flight level 90 for the transfer from Langen to us. If your hold as Excos is filling up, and this is important, Excos, it's like you can't fit many planes in there. Traffic via Mapich isn't too much, but like it also goes to Excos. It can fill up quite quickly. Normally, you do have some time. If it fills up and you see it's filling up, tell Reims, okay, Excos is getting full. Can you please issue delta arrivals? And the delta arrivals will go to Diekirch. It's also in the LOA that when you're using delta arrivals, Reims should descend to flight level 140, so you can easily get them into the Diekirch holding. At this moment, if you're telling him, okay, please use delta arrivals, it might be a good thing to remind the controller as well to use flight level 140 instead of flight level 90 for those arrivals. And use the holds together with the transitions to reduce workload. So basically what you can do, we'll take Diekirch for an example. You can use issue stars that go to Diekirch. You're filling up the hold from the bottom to the top. And then at the bottom, the traffic that's over there, you can just clear them on the transition one by one. And then that way you can very easily, with very low effort, create separation and put them all on the path towards the runway. And it's actually quite good. Now, this is a rule of thumb, like the one I mainly use. You can use holds when the expected delay is more than 5 minutes. Again, it's a rule of thumb. If you really like vectoring, you can also just keep them vectoring around. But at the end of the day, a delay is a delay. So whether you're vectoring him around for 5 minutes or you just like put him in a hold for 1 or 2 legs, the result will basically be the same for the pilots. So don't be too afraid to use holds, especially in Luxembourg airspace, because it's like rather small and tight. There's no need to be afraid of using a hold from time to time when you're dealing with high traffic loads. Okay, then transitions. They're very straightforward to select. And why? Because it's very basically clear based on the star and the runway you are using. They are very easy to use, and it greatly reduces your controller workload. It's easier to plan the descent for a pilot because the pilot will know, okay, this will be basically my exact route towards the runway, so they can plan their descent. Or like today, the pilot doesn't plan the descent, the FMC does, but still easier for the FMC to plan the descent. And it's always an efficient routing. To demonstrate, I'll just quickly open up my charts. So, for example, if you come in via Bidbu, you can take the 1 Echo arrival, which takes you towards Oxcam. And then from Oxcam, you have a very easy transition onto final approach. I personally think you can't do any better with like vectoring them in. I think it's like the most efficient way you can do it. Basically the same with Diekirch. getting in via Remba 1 Delta for arrival, from Diekirch directly onto the ILS, minimum delay, very short and efficient routing. They're really, really good, the transitions, so you shouldn't be afraid to use them from time to time. And of course, like I said, efficient routing. Okay, approach types. Just gonna quickly cover them. This is basically standard stuff, which most of you already know. Precision approach, ILS, of course, on both runways. Runway 24 is ILS 1 to CAT, and it goes to CAT 3. ILS 06 is CAT 1 only. And you have your approaches with vertical guidance. So also like interesting, the difference between a precision approach and approach with vertical guidance is just like the accuracy of the approach. So ILS is more accurate than RNP at the moment. So that's why it doesn't qualify as a precision approach, the things you're doing here. A non-precision approach is by definition an approach that does not have a vertical guidance. So which things fall in here? RNP, LPV, it's like a subset of RNP that I don't really know the details of it, to be honest, but it's like very precise. And then you have your regular LNAV, VNAV, which is basically available on most planes, which is the VNAV here that provides the vertical guidance. If you don't have VNAV, you only have LNAV, so then you're basically on a non-precision approach. Okay, using stars and transitions to separate traffic. I know I've gone a little bit fast now. Are there any questions up to this point? Because if you have any questions, the things I'm going to say now won't really make that much of sense. So if you have a question, go ahead. No questions? Okay, so let's to illustrate how you can use stars and transitions together to create separation. I'm going to use like a practical example. So let's say Langen forgot to separate two Bitbu arrivals. You know, it happens. So what can you do about it? So we'll assume that the traffic reaches Bitbu at the same moment, and then you can basically do this. So I'm quickly going to explain what this is. So the traffic is coming in above each other, and like one is a little bit ahead of the other one, but not much, and you really need to get separation. You just clear the first one on the Bitbu 1 echo arrival and the Oxcam to Charlie transition, so it goes basically straight towards the ILS. Yeah. Very easy. And then the other one, you give them a speed restriction. Actually, it's best to give both of them a speed restriction at this point, so they keep going at the same speed. And you can just clear them for the Bitbu 1 Delta arrival. Okay, then you just monitor the situation. They'll slowly start to diverge from each other. And at a certain point, when you're confident, you can say, okay, I'm going to turn him left towards like 150 or something. And then you can put them on a vector and then just neatly fit them behind the other arrival. So this is a very easy way of maintaining, getting separation. And you can even do it with 3 planes. Like if you have 3 planes and they're a little bit close to each other, okay, you can give the first one this routing, then the second one you can route them like this, and then the third one you can maybe route them like this. And also easy if you think like, oh no, I won't be able to get it separated, I'm not entirely sure, you can just let them fly the arrival and you can still let them enter the hold at Diekirch if it doesn't really work out. So you have a lot of options when you are getting them in via Bitbu, which is also another reason why it's really useful that we as Luxembourg Approach can give the star, because it's really easy to get them separated by doing this. Okay, then CDO. So CDO is a little bit very special procedure, and I think the way it is at Luxembourg, I haven't seen it anywhere else yet. Maybe it exists. If you know another place that has this type of procedure, let me know. I'm interested to learn about it. But what CDO at Luxembourg basically means, and you can only apply it during low traffic load, is 1. Basically, Luxembourg Approach gives the pilot a route and an ILS clearance, and we'll have a look at these routes in any moment. And then 2, pilot follows a given route and vertical restrictions published in AIP. And Luxembourg Approach traffic transfers traffic to tower when they are on the localizer. That's it. Very, very easy. People are sometimes a little bit scared of CDO. They don't really know what it is. But it's actually, as a controller, the easiest thing to do. It's just like, okay, this is your route, and descend at your discretion. It's not an explicit thing to say, but like it's part of the instruction. Just you do your thing, I'll sit back and relax and make sure you don't fly into anyone else. So it's really easy. pilot calls you, says, for example, Luxair 210 Victor inbound to Dikir, request CDO. And you just say, okay, Luxair 210 Victor, cleared CDO ILS runway 24 via Lima X-ray 242, and you give the QNH. He reports back. You can also include report established, and it's as easy as that. It's really useful procedure. So let me quickly go over to these charts and show you what these points are. So like basically they're these ones. So when you're coming from from the west, you might you'll add Ayrton and some other based on how it's needed. You can route via more than one point, and it's also written down in the procedures itself which routes you should use depending on the direction you're coming from. And they have some restrictions, but it's up to the pilot to follow these restrictions correctly. Also, not many pilots will know about this procedure, so when someone asks you explicitly, request CDO, you can assume they know what they are doing. Okay, now that was a lot of theory, so we're just gonna cover some common mistakes. I'm gonna open to some answers from you guys, so you can also think a little bit about it and see what went wrong. So let's the first case, let's assume a pilot is coming in from the east, has received a clearance to descend to flight level 90 and is transferred before the start entry point. And the pilot calls up Luxembourg Approach. Luxembourg Approach, Carolux 210 Victor Heavy, flight level 115 for flight level 90, information alpha. Then Approach just answers, gives a descent instruction, and he asks, are you able for the OXCAM to Delta transition ILS, runway 06? The pilot says, of course, I'm able, affirm. And then the controller just says, cleared OXCAM to Delta transition ILS, runway 06. Okay, just a quick question, and gonna let you think about it for a moment before giving the answer. What is wrong in this situation? What went wrong? So think about it for a moment, and then when you think you know the answer, just let me know. Okay, not much response yet. So
can you hear me?
Anyone who wants to try?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yes. He got transferred before the star entry point, so he should have got already a star, but you had to still give it to him.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, you should get a star, yeah.
Yeah, you should first give the star before you give the transition. That's the thing, indeed. That's correct. So at this moment, the pilot only has the last point in his route is Bitbu, and Bitbu doesn't connect to OXCAM, so not to the transition. So indeed, you should issue the star first and then issue the transition. Or an alternative you can do, but you have to coordinate with Lang and Radar to do that, is you can also combine it with a direct OXCAM and cleared OXCAM to Delta transition. That would also be an option. Because otherwise it's not part of a route and the clearance just doesn't make sense this way. So okay, very good. 150 information alpha requests CDO. The controller answers, Luxair 210 Victor Luxembourg Approach. Hello, identified, cleared CDO, ILS runway 24 via Lima X-ray 242, descent flight level 60. Okay, what went wrong? So the pilot calls and requests CDO, and then the controller answers, okay, cleared CDO via, and then the waypoint, descent flight level 60.
60 is too high for the CDO?
Yes. That's basically the answer. When you give a CDO clearance, it automatically includes the descent to 3,000 feet. So you don't have to explicitly say the descent to 3,000 feet, but it is included in the clearance. As soon as you give another level in between, you're basically defining the purpose of the CDO. So no need to include any level. If you have conflicting traffic below, you don't approve the CDO, or what you can do is like, okay, when ready, descent flight level 60, so many track miles if you want to help the pilot out in planning his descent. But like 60 is indeed way too high for CDO, and you don't include a level during our CDO procedure. Okay, another case. Pilot is coming in from the south, has received descent to reach flight level 90 by Akelu, and is transferred from Reims to Luxembourg Approach 2 minutes before Akelu. No further coordination was carried out. The pilot calls Luxembourg Approach. Same thing, logging on, and he receives a descent instruction flight level 60, and the next thing he receives a heading 300, and heading 300 for ILS runway 06. Okay, what went wrong in this situation? And for the people who don't know by heart where Akelu lies, I think I have a drawing of it somewhere over here. So yeah, Akelu basically lies over here. And it's 2 minutes, so assume he's like around here or around here. Probably will a little bit further. Anyone who knows what went wrong?
Yeah, he needs to follow this star until he's in the Luxembourg airspace.
Yeah, correct, indeed. You have to follow the star until you are in Luxembourg airspace to make sure you don't enter the Lorraine TMA. If you want to give vectoring from that point, you should coordinate with the appropriate control. Okay, well done. Another one. Pilot is coming in from the west, has received star clearance, and the descent of level 900, no other coordination was carried out. The pilot calls Luxembourg approach. Basically, same thing, descent, we know this already. Clears the pilot on a transition for ILS runway 06. Descend via transition instruction. And this is like a little map that shows the situation. So the pilot is here, gets a transition clearance. And then at Lima X-ray 069er, the controller just says, okay, contact tower. What is wrong in the situation?
Isn't it a bit too early?
No, that's not what I'm looking for.
Is it something to do with the height?
No. It's basically you haven't given him ILS clearance yet. So you've cleared him through the transition, which is a separate procedure, but you also have to clear him for the ILS approach. And normally you would do that like around here or something. When you don't clear him for ILS approach, yeah, you can just like over here, this transition ends. And then he isn't cleared to go any further in theory. Like in practice, most people and most pilots will just continue on the ILS, but theoretically you should still say clear the ILS approach on time. Okay, and then just like one thing to finish it off, something I often see. I'm not gonna do the question, but basically when there's no traffic around, there's no need to vector them all the way around. You can just do like this, huh? Normally they are lower enough, you can get them on. If you're a little bit afraid of the vectoring, you can also use the transition, which works very well. But, like, try to avoid like these kind of delays when there's no other traffic around, and like this is way more efficient. Okay, that basically covers the arrivals. So we'll go over to departures. Now departures can be a little bit more complicated. Yeah, this is important that you have this right as well. So in general, as we said before, try to get your departures above the arrivals when they exit the TMA. Again, especially important for RAMs because you have a very, very small corridor that has to fit in all the traffic. Get your arrivals as low as possible, as soon as possible, again, mainly via RAMs. And then Luxembourg Approach is responsible for arrival and departure separation and for all the coordination with the neighboring controllers. A way that we try to accomplish the departures above arrivals is by using continuous climb and trying to ensure it as much as possible for departures. And just be flexible and adapt yourself to the situation. Depending on what the traffic load is and how the situation is at the moment, it might be better to do one thing instead of something else. And yeah, all corridor entries are hotspots. And coordinate. Okay, SIDS. In general, some SIDS have explicit climb restrictions like Excos, Montmedy, Rapport, Grotonquin, and Asmox. The SID length is also like something that varies. The Yankee departures are longer than the X-ray departures, and the uniform departures are longer than the Tango departures. For Grotonquin SIDS, there are notable climb restrictions, and they are mainly based on avoidance of other airspace. Like this airspace is like the Lorraine TMA I talked about before. Like there's also some military airspace at the border with Germany, and it's mainly the climb restrictions are mainly for that they are in place. And the X-ray departures are a short route, and sometimes pilots won't be able to follow them due to performance when they're quite heavy. And of course, for runway 06, you just switch it around. Oh, this should be Tango. This is a mistake. It's X-ray and Tango departures that are short route. and then Yankee is the long route. Okay, this is like the most difficult thing to get right, and which causes so many problems with ramps. You have to get your departures above here by a kilo, and it's very, very difficult because you still have this traffic descending and this traffic is climbing. And the reason that you really want your arrivals below it is because you have a common portion over here, and then when you have arrivals coming in like this and departures going out like that, and the departures are not yet above your arrivals, it will be very, very difficult to get them to climb here while there's other traffic below. Once they pass Grotonquin, you will have interference with flows to Zurich and stuff. So that really is the reason why you want to have your departures above the arrivals when they reach a kilo. This is like, I consider one of the most difficult things to get right all the time as Luxembourg approaches. So it's really, really important that you pay close attention to like this intersection and the flow of departures and arrivals over there. So how can you do it? You can play it very, very safe, and you can just say, okay, my highest traffic strategy is, well, just always issue a Yankee departure, and I'll just show them if you don't know them that well. So let me just, all right, here are they. Runway 24. Okay, so the Yankee departures, they just climb ahead, they turn around all the way like this, and then they pass over the airport and go towards Grotonquin. When you let them follow, your planes follow this, you're 100% certain that they will be high enough. When they reach this point, they'll probably be already very high there. So that is like very, very safe. The X-ray departures is just like after departure, immediate left turn, and then to get onto that radial. So this is, well, basically the difference between them. Runway 06 is analogous. The turn is a little bit different, but it boils down to the same thing. I think I misclicked that. 06 here. So it's the same thing. So when you're using the Tango departure, it's just like, okay, after departure 2,200 feet, which you like reach immediately. It's just right to Grotonquin. Not much time to climb. And like the Tango departures, they take this into account, and they like have a loop over here that lets them climb above. I'll mainly be focusing on Grotonquin. Like theoretically, you also have XCOS, but like XCOS is like very, very rarely used because like you have Ramstein over here, big military air base, and not many planes will route through it. Osmox also has a similar thing, but this is more aircraft performance than this. This is also like separation. So I will be focusing on Grotonquin during this situation, but like the things are analogous. So this could be one of your strategies, and then give very early handoffs to provide a continuous climb. And you just don't issue directs, because every direct you issue, it will reduce the time, the length of the route, so less time to climb. Now, in general, that's not a good strategy. I mean, yes, it will be very, very safe, theoretically. Yes, they will be high enough, but it's not efficient at all, because you have to fly around that much, big detours. Not efficient, delays, the list probably goes on. Coordinate, coordinate, coordinate. You can make the routes shorter by coordinating and seeing, okay, this is the traffic situation. What are my options? Maybe it's possible to give a direct or something and get it better. Playing it too efficient, then on the other hand, like the other extreme, you can say like, okay, wait, no, I'm just always going to issue an X-ray or a Tango departure when available, a Yankee or uniform departure when the pilot reports unable due to performance. Will basically be very efficient, so immediately turning towards Grotonquin basically, and you can coordinate to provide continuous climb or fancy things like that. You can issue many directs, but then again, you have potential risks. Again, the Akelu part, like you can have collisions over there. Higher risk of airspace infringement and those things. So really, again, coordinate. The coordination is basically about find the balance between like playing it very, very safe, but like not efficient, and being very, very efficient, but not safe. So it's basically finding the correct balance between the two extremes based on the traffic load and the current traffic situation. Okay. So like we said before, you don't have, during high traffic load, you don't have many time to coordinate. So then the best idea is stick to your SOPs, and that's probably the safest option. During low traffic load, you have more time for coordination. And then it's possible to give like, okay, what's going to be the most efficient option, while also keeping it safe. And like all things, these lie on a spectrum. Like it's not like it's either high traffic load or low traffic load. No, there's a lot of options in between. And just is the controller's discretion to say, okay, this is about the traffic load. This is like, I can make this thing a little bit more efficient, but like I'm not going to do too much. And that's basically the balance you have to find. Okay. One thing you can coordinate about is the Yankee or the X-ray departure, Groot-Anquin in this case. So as I said before, during high traffic load, how are you going to coordinate this? Assume you need a Yankee or uniform departure during high traffic load. We had a shuttle, I think it was Geneva, a little while ago, with a lot of traffic coming in via Groot-Anquin, Givor. So coming in from the south. And in that case, it's really useful to have like the Yankee or the uniform departure, so you just have your departures out of the way. So assume you need a Yankee or a uniform departure during high traffic load, especially if your high traffic load is coming from the south. Coordinate between tower and approach. Will Groot-Anquin corridor be empty enough at the time you expect the pilot to take off? Yes, you can issue a Tango or an X-ray departure if the pilot is able. No, or you can't reach approach, or you're just all too busy. Play safe, issue a Yankee or a uniform departure. The en route controllers will thank you later. Low traffic load. Assume you need an X-ray or Tango departure. This is like basically the situation you encounter day to day on the network. Like in the evening, like there's some traffic, but not like anything too busy. You can coordinate with between each other. Okay, do we expect any traffic in the Groot-Anquin corridor at the estimated departure time? If yes, okay, will it be a lot of traffic? Will it be able to just vector him around if needed? And then it's basically the opposite. If you expect some traffic over there, you can issue Yankee or uniform departure. No, or you can't reach approach, you can just issue X-ray or Tango, if the pilot is able, of course, due to performance. Okay, so it's just very important that you just like have an overview of like what is the traffic situation. And like a thing I just also want to say, like in this presentation, Luxembourg is really, really about coordinating and like seeing like this is the situation we are in. It's not like black on white. You can based on the situation always make a different choice. It's not like it's set in stone how you should control over there. I mean, we have guidelines, but it's not like actually set in stone. Okay, coordinating directs. Personally, one of my favorites that I like to do as Brussels control. When the military airspace is active, so I've shown a picture of it a little bit ago, but you'll see it in a moment as well. When the military airspace is active, you should try to avoid directs because most of the time they'll route through military airspace. On Top Sky, it's very easy to see when military airspace is active because it will just draw it and also include the levels at which it is active. So during those moments, you normally don't have much room for directs. So when the militaries are not active, like you can see the border over here, the military goes basically like this. So you will have to follow like the red lines. When the military is inactive, and this is personally something I really like to do when I'm on Brussels control, is you just can ask directs to Luxembourg Approach for departures. And what it makes this thing so great is that in general you have a lot of traffic flowing like this and like this, traffic to and from Frankfurt, and this corridor is mainly empty. So it can be easy to just say, okay, I'm going to request direct to Bulam or Kegit as the Brussels control. Or you can also propose it as Luxembourg Approach if you see not much traffic around there. You can try it and coordinate on this corridor or whatever. And then you can just like give the pilot like a huge shortcut, which is very useful. Also works the other way around. This is something I also like to do when I'm on Brussels control. And the military airspace is inactive. You can give a direct to Diekirch or even give a direct to Diekirch, clear him on the transition. This is 06 in this example, and then just give him direct to a point on the transition to make the route even more efficient. Disadvantage of this is that not all pilots will know what you are talking about, so that's something to consider. Like I found that in general, on a day-to-day basis on the network, this works. And also, again, a great thing of this is you get them out of your flow from Coxie to what is Pace-Off and over here. So you have like your Frankfurt flow can go over here with your descents as needed, and then you can have your Luxembourg flow out here, and then they don't interfere with your other flows, which are mainly over here in the north.
Sorry, can I ask something? Say
Yeah.
something
Sure.
about the previous one? As Luxembourg approach, you say you can always ask to control for a direct, but please don't do that.
Okay.
Because you don't see the complete situation of control, and if controls gets for every departure on Luxembourg approach a request, it's just to become crazy.
All right. So yeah, that's
Sorry.
a good point. Yeah, no, you're completely right. So it's a good point. Like just yeah, you're mostly on Discord, and you can ask like, hey, is it okay if you want? If can I ask a direct from time to time, or like controllers like, yeah, there's no traffic in the airspace. Sure, go ahead. Or like, okay, wait, and I'll just ask for the directs if I think they are necessary. So
Yeah,
indeed,
and most of the time you have to transfer to control before Diekerich, so it's not a real big detour, and then control can give the directs just past Diekerich. Yeah? It's not that
yes.
big detour. So
Yeah, indeed, that's completely true. But like again, it just like depends on like the situation. Also, like the high traffic load and low traffic load over here, they really also refer to like the traffic load for Brussels control at the moment. If Brussels control is basically empty or not much traffic, it's possible. Like I always do it from time to time, just like ask a direct over there to cut up a piece. But indeed, it really depends on the controller and the situation. So yeah, coordinate well and know what each controller wants. Okay, continuous climb. Like, okay, I've included some rather more advanced things over here. Like, you can experiment them if you like. Okay, we're feeling happy, and I want to try this out. And okay, let's try it. But like, not for day-to-day usage. And certainly not when it's busy. A thing you could do is, yeah, like basic things is initial is 4,000 feet. In theory, tower should contact approach automatically when they are airborne. Most pilots don't know this. What you can do is include the handoff and the takeoff clearance, or you can include it in the IFR clearance, or you can just like immediately say it when they are airborne. You can do that. But like most pilots won't know it, that they have to contact approaches themselves. And then, of course, give an early handoff so the controller can provide continuous climb. Again, very important for traffic towards the south, so you get them above those arrivals. And then low traffic load options. So as I said before, these are like, if you really want to try them out, you can give them a try from time to time, but like not on a day-to-day basis. And just make sure you won't like, okay, we're going to try this out. One thing you could do is coordinate a higher initial climb based on traffic situation to avoid like that level off at 4,000 feet. That's a thing you could do. Another thing you can try out is, okay, is there any traffic around? No. Okay, can I give a higher level to make that climb a little bit more continuous? And you can coordinate for these things. But again, like those are things you can try out if you want, but like not for a day-to-day basis, and certainly not during high traffic loads. And yeah, again, it's very important for traffic that goes towards the south, towards Reims, to avoid like the conflicts over there with the arrivals. Caution, some departure routes intersect others or arrival routes, so always like know how your sits are. This one, for example, it comes back over the airport. Also, when you're manning tower and the traffic before you has a uniform departure for Cross-Tonquin, make sure you keep track of where the aircraft is. If he's climbing well, don't be just like, oh, he's over here, I'm gonna send my next departure, and then, oh no, he turns back and now I have a collision alert. Pay close attention to all those departures, the way they are, like XCOS goes overhead and then back like this. On runway 24 it's a little bit better, but like you also still have the XCOS X-ray departure. Just remember, like you have an arrival flow over here. You have potential conflicts between the X-ray and the Yankee over here. So yeah, make sure that you know the way your sits are very well, and especially at Luxembourg, provide enough departure separation. You already have a higher separation standard of 5 miles instead of 3 miles. So yeah, use that and make sure you have enough separation, especially on 06. It's like a little bit of a tangled mess over here. Okay, How do you estimate the traffic situation when preparing clearance? Well, during high traffic loads, what you could do, this is done in real life. Most pilots will probably say like, huh, what is he doing at the moment? But we'll just go with it. In real life, they only give clearance after pushback and or startup. So then you know, okay, he's done his push, he started his engines, okay, he'll get rolling anytime soon. What is the traffic situation? Okay, I can base myself on that. During low traffic loads, you can make an educated guess based on VetSpy. I think it's what most of us would do. And of course, be prepared, especially with departures, to vector them off the SID from time to time. Like, okay, I'm just gonna give him a right turn already, or I'm just gonna like send him his upwind leg so he can get a little bit more altitude and he fits better with the other traffic coming in. It's just like, again, very good coordination can make this work. And if you can't coordinate, you can't reach the other controller, just stick to the safest option and follow your standard procedures, and that will usually make everything work quite well. Okay, so conclusion about coordination, basically everything is like know this. So know your SIDs, know your stars, know your transitions, know your airspace. I always have charts nearby. I also look at my charts very regularly when controlling, like, okay, how is that SID routing again? All right, like this. And okay, I have traffic coming in. Okay, what's the best start to give it? Like there is not, like I said before, there's not like really an algorithm to determine, okay, this is the best thing for this situation. You have to like know your airspace, know your airport, know it well, and make sure that based on that and your experience, you can do the right thing that helps most people out. Know your neighboring sectors. Again, read the LOAs. There is a lot of useful information on there. Don't know about, I actually do know about it, like the LOA with France and LOA with Germany. They all have like charts in them from like, wait, the sectors are like this, they run like that, they are between those levels. Read these sector LOAs, especially during high traffic when there are a lot of split sectors. Know your sectors well, know the rules you've made with your adjacent sectors so that it runs smoothly. The last thing you want is during an event when there's a lot of people online and you're like, oh yeah, who should I ask? Oh, I forgot to read my LOA, and then you have to look it up last minute. You're gonna make mistakes. So please know this well. And don't be afraid to think out of the box from time to time, but also not too much. Don't start doing too crazy things, but like, it's okay to try something new from time to time, see, okay, this worked well, and oh, this doesn't work well. Then you can do that from time to time. It's a good thing. Okay, I'd like to thank everyone for your attention. Like, I basically summarized the most important thing of this. Luxembourg can be a very complex airport. Take your time to learn anything and regularly refresh your knowledge. Once you are on Luxembourg Approach, take your time to spend enough time over there, make use of your solo training endorsement to control there from time to time. Talk to other controllers. It's ideal if you have like you're like just an S2 controller and you want to get to Luxembourg soon. To get together with an approach controller. Okay, like you have your approach rating already. Can we like come online together at Luxembourg Approach? Can you show me around a little bit and learn from each other? And again, read everything from time to time. Make sure you know it and like have a good knowledge of your airspace. And once you have that, you'll be able to control Luxembourg very easily. You'll get to know its charm. It's like very elegant in the ways it works. And then hopefully you'll learn to love Luxembourg as much as I do. And as I guess many of our more older mentors who received their training over there instead of Brussels. Okay, so I also take any questions now. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them.
I have one thing.
Go ahead.
There was one slide where my technical alarm went off. There was the separation 3 and 5 nautical miles. It's not because they have a less advanced radar, but it's because of the coverage of radar.
Is it coverage of radar?
Yeah, sure. It's so the tracker has not enough input sensors to calculate a precise enough position for the 3 nautical mile separation. We have the same problem in Brussels and on the regional airports. If one of the radars is out of service, like at Brussels, the approach radar at Brussels, the Barbara is out of service. Brussels will go from 3 to 5 also.
Oh, right. So it's this slide.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, I fully trust Eric on his technical explanation for this. So it's not a less advanced radar, it's less coverage. then.
Coverage, yeah.
Okay, very good to know. Learn something new. By
Yeah,
this.
just stupid detail, you know.
No, it's nice. It's nice to know. Any other questions? Okay, then I think everyone got the most points out of it. Again, like I said, make sure that you take your time to learn everything and make sure you know everything. Take some time, and of course, this is not like a substitute for proper training and reading the manuals. It's just like to give you like an intuition to start from when you're learning these things. So yeah, if there's no more questions, thank you everyone for coming, for your attention. I hope you got something out of it, and see you on the next presentation or something.
Thank you.
No, thank you.